Today on Locked On Canadiens, there are actual games this week. Our weekly forecast is back. We're going to talk about the power play and then some notes from Habs training camp.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day. My name is Laura Saba, also known as The Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ian Wolver, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, are you ready for some games this week?
I am. It's finally, we're done talking about hypothetical hockey. It's happening. We're here. Things are good.
And so this, if you're new to the show, if you just discovered us over the summer or in the off season, we do a weekly forecast every week to set up the games that are happening on our Monday episodes normally. And then later on in this show, we're going to talk about some power play combinations that we've seen in training camp. And then finally, some other training camp notes. Let's start with the games this week. It is a packed schedule. I think, it's the preseason. We're well on the record saying preseason games are just a cause for the Canadiens to get injured. They don't really do all that much. But we're still excited to see them. We've missed these people. We've missed this team. We've seen them work hard over the summer. We've seen the chemistry carry on into the offseason. So let's get started. There are 4 games this week. There's one against Pittsburgh on Monday night. There's one against Philadelphia on Tuesday night. And then you've got Toronto twice on Thursday and Saturday, which I guess normally what we do is we kind of tee up the opponents and stuff. But since we don't know who any of these teams are sending, let's kind of just talk about the Montreal Canadiens aspect of it. So what do you think? Like, who do you think the Canadiens brass wants to see the most out of amongst the cusp players, let's call them?
I think they're still very interested in who locks up that third pairing on the defensive side in Arber, Xhekaj, or Jaden Struble. We'll see who sort of stands out in those games. We'll talk a little bit more about how training camp has gone because one of them has started to get some rave reviews early, so maybe they have a leg up in that competition. But I think it's really those guys. I think they're very interested to see how their power play units look. We'll talk about that in our second segment because we talked about one outcome all summer and Marty said, nope, we're doing something different, which isn't that just exactly what we kind of have come to expect? We often say there's things that we think should happen or think are best, and then there's what Marty thinks, and those are often different things, not one worse than the other. So I think those are really what the Canadiens are going to be looking for. We still haven't gotten a good look at their penalty kill. That's, I think, what I'm most interested in is understanding what that's going to look like, how effective they can look, even if it's against sub-NHL talent. Like, you need to get reps in somehow, and we need to understand who's going to be playing in those roles. So for me, like, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I like one of my pet peeves is when people say regular season means nothing. Preseason means nothing. Like, let's say, like we say somebody has not played well defensively or has not generated enough offense. Like, these are the people they're going to be playing. Yeah, but it does mean something, right? Like, the habits and the behaviors are on display at that point, even if it's not the same competition they're going to be facing. So for me, like, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is don't say that,
Yeah, it doesn't mean nothing it means nothing for known quantities, right?
Yes.
Like when Carey Price had a bad preseason and he told everybody to chill out, a completely reasonable response. I'm Carey Price. I know what I'm going to be able to do. Everybody shut up. Like, I think, but it's not nothing for a guy like Kirby Dach, who's missed a lot of hockey over the last few years. It's not nothing for a guy like Patrick Laine, who spent the last few years rehabbing injuries and hadn't really had a chance to get off to a good start in training camp and in preseason. So it does mean something for those guys. And it means something from a macro sense of like how these units play with each other. That second line is going to be pretty much reconstructed from what we had seen towards the end of last year. So, there are a lot of reasons for preseason to mean something. The result means nothing. The score you see on your whatever sports app you use, the score you see the next day means nothing. Don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention too much to the numbers. I want to see how these guys look and feel and sort of more so roles and responsibilities than how those are executed at this point in time.
For me, I think the biggest thing is the penalty kill. I'm very excited about this interesting power play stuff that we're going to talk about in the second segment. But the biggest unknown quantity is that penalty kill. Like, we know the goaltending, right? We know Jake Evans is probably going to lead it like he did last year. But then, there's a decent chance that it's going to be Josh Anderson supporting him, right? But then who else?
Yeah.
That's the part that's an unknown quantity. I'm also like quite interested to see what happens with Mike Matheson, because my affection for Mike Matheson grows like in like inverse proportion to like his importance to this team.
Yeah. I he's another one where I just, his role diminished last year, right? Like, he started the year as the power play quarterback on power play 1, top pairing defenseman. He was the guy in that unit. And then Lane Hudson came around and he became duplicative, right? Like, it wasn't something that he had anticipated, or at least not as quickly as it happened. And the Canadiens had to ask Mike Matheson to do a lot of things that maybe he wasn't used to doing, things that he's not maybe at his core natural with. He still did really well. Like, he's a great penalty killer. They really leaned on him in the playoffs on that penalty kill. So that's another guy. Like, I want to see what his role is. I want to see like what they end up doing with Noah Dobson. That's going to be really important to sort of the preseason. The way we see these guys rolled out is not permanent. Obviously, they're going to make changes, but it is a glimpse at what this team thinks is their first thought, right? It's let's try this while we have time,
Yeah.
We'll see that with the power play that was rolled out on Sunday afternoon. But like that's sort of what we're looking at. We're looking at sort of what the Canadiens are thinking. Preseason assignments are a pretty good indication of, hey, this is what we think is going to, roll out come October 7th or 8th when things get kicked off.
Yes, absolutely. So what are you looking for? Like, for me, like preseason games, like I want to see a lot of energy from the guys that know they're not going to make it this season, right? That they know that there's not a spot for them on the lineup, but they're still going to bring that energy. They're still going to try their best. Like, I'm thinking of a kid like Sean Farrell, for example, right? Like, there's not really room in this lineup for him right now. He doesn't seem to be part of the future core of the Canadiens. I want to see how he plays. I want to see if he earns himself an NHL spot elsewhere, right?
Yeah. Him, Joshua Waugh's in that same boat. I think Phil Makeshar is in that same boat. He had a pretty good showing in the rookie showcase, especially given the assignment that the Canadiens want him to play like Brad Marchand, which I think is... Yes. But by the way, like, he's actually a little bit bigger than Brad Marchand. Like, it's close. They're pretty much the same build, but going by whatever they have listed on Hockey Reference, he is a little bit bigger than Brad. I think I want to start to see that put into place. Like, he's not going to nail it. He's not going to come out preseason game 1 and like, I'm Brad Marchand, I'm making the team now. But I want to see glimpses of it. I want to see you go to the net hard. I want to see you find passing lanes. I want to see you start to agitate a little bit. Owen Beck had a pretty quiet showing. Yes, someone put it out in our comments, and they're correct. Like, he had a couple rushes where he took a shot and missed the net. But like, that was really it. There wasn't much else to his game. Like, yes, if he scored those, of course, we're talking about, wow, he scored a bunch of goals. But like, there wasn't much else to his game where you're like, okay, Owen Beck really stood out. And also, he looked like on some of those, he made passes that he just didn't need to be forced. That's another player who I think it's time to see a step up.
Yeah.
Of course, going into the preseason, the thing that matters most is that none of these guys get hurt, that they all stay healthy, and that we avoid the shenanigans from last year. It's really important, especially for Arber Xhekaj, to avoid that shenanigans and play hockey in the preseason and not play a couple of shifts and then get ejected. Like, it's really important for this team and for that player in particular to get off to a good start. They can't afford to have the shenanigans that they had last year, which is hilarious because they end the preseason with 2 games against the Senators.
Right. And that's really when the shenanigans are most at risk. It's really funny though. Like, every time I hear something about the Canadiens telling their team to play like someone, it's always someone I hate. Like, with Philip Makeshar, it's like, you need to be more like Brad Marchand. And then with Yuri Slafkovsky, initially it was like you can play like Brady Tkachuk, right? But then in the rebuild, I think it was the last episode, like in his exit interview, like they were talking about him playing more like Tom Wilson. And I was like, can you like choose any guy that isn't like widely hated for but then I get it. Like you want to be the team everyone hates to play against. All right. Right before we started recording this, there was some fresh, I'm not going to say news, I was going to say a fresh take on the power play units, and we're really excited to discuss them because they are quite interesting, and that's coming up in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. But first, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can see what you're spending. Like for me, the biggest eye-opening thing was all the little treats were adding up and how much I was spending on those incidentals. And really, it was just a big waste of money. So Monarch really, really helped me curb my spending. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, it is time to discuss the power play. And just before we started recording, we got some news on that front. And the units were nothing like we expected.
Yeah, so Arber Boss is at camp. He's at the practices. He says, we have a power play unit at Canadiens camp. Gallagher, Laine, Dach, Demidov, Dobson. We'll see later today, but this would suggest the other unit would be Slafkovsky, Caulfield, Bolduc, Suzuki, and Hudson. It's calling one power play one and power play two would be somewhat arbitrary. These are two very balanced units that can legitimately compete for ice time. Interesting to note, the Dobson unit is clearly running through Demidov at the right circle. He has 4 right shots to feed for one-timers from that spot. We spent all summer talking about who was going to play in that one-timer spot on power play one. Was it going to be Laine or was it going to be Demidov? And it turns out the answer is neither, which I think is so Marty. He nailed that assignment. It was very clear that he wants to balance these units. He wants 2 units he can roll out there, and power play one is going to be whatever one is rolling. Whatever one is hottest going into that game, that's the one that comes over the boards first. Do you like this approach? Do you like the approach of having 2 power play units that can go and
Yes.
you hope one of them can put one in the net?
I like it because you're loading up, right? Because most of the time it's the same thing, right? You have a top penalty kill wave and a second penalty kill wave, right? So generally teams will put their best at the up front, right? To play the most minutes on there. But this makes the Canadiens more relentless. And that's what I think is the key here, is that you can't escape them. That's what I enjoy about this. Right?
Yeah, I agree. My main concern, though, like let's take a 2-minute power play from last year. How much of that was the Suzuki power play unit getting? Like a minute 15, a minute 20?
Yeah.
That's going to have to change.
Yes.
Like if you're rolling both of these units, you each get a minute. And at that point it's how if you're in the middle of a really great power play shift where you're cycling the puck around, like is the other unit only going to get 30-40 seconds on the power play? Like I wonder if a timeshare can truly be as effective as we hope it would be, right?
Yeah. I get what you're saying, But I think in this instance, I don't think that there's necessarily like one unit that they're going to roll out at the beginning every time, right? Like this also enables them to keep people guessing.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah, it's
sense?
going to be like if you're an opposing team and you're doing your, your pregame scouting and you're trying to figure out, okay, top penalty kill unit, we're putting you out against these guys. Like, which one are you sending them out against? Like, to have Demidov and Line, and it's something I joked about after that one rookie showcase game where Demidov was just firing one-timerable passes over to Oliver Kapanen. I was just thinking, like, you have to find a way to put them on the same power play unit. And they did, which is really funny. It was just not the way that we had anticipated. I said, like, you have to find a way to get Demidov and Line onto the same power play because they're going to score 1 million goals just doing that.
Yeah.
So they did it. But like, if you're, let's say, let's use, the Penguins as an example because Montreal's playing them today as you're listening to this. If you're the Penguins and Montreal has both of their power play units, who are you sending out your top defensive penalty kill unit against? Is it the Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Bolduc, Hudson pair group? Which is like, yeah, you're probably sending them out against that. Or are you looking at Demidov and Line and Dobson and saying, no, we have to send them out? Like, it's an impossible selection. So
yeah.
I think whoever the one who is going to be more effective is the one that the other team thinks is less good. I think that's how it's going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right in that it does give an artificial advantage to a particular pairing, but I think also it depends on what the other teams have got, right? Like if you're weak in the penalty killing department, it doesn't really much matter, right? But if you're if you're a team with like a really elite first wave and then kind of a mediocre second wave, that's when you fall into trouble. But what I really, really appreciate this is that it always keeps teams guessing. It always keeps people on their toes. And I think the way the Canadiens are playing and the way the Canadiens want them to play, like I do really strongly feel like the message is like, don't worry about how much ice time you're getting versus the other team, the other wave. It's just, whenever you're on the ice, this is what we expect of you. And really, I think, I think this is really cool. And I know you're talking about the timeshare, but let's be honest. Like, if it's not going well about 1 minute in, you should be changing anyway, right?
Yeah,
Like
you've got 45 seconds. If it looks crummy, yes, we're over the boards. We're making and now you have, like, last year power play 2 was actually quite good. Especially once Matheson got there, like that gave them 2 better units. It's nowhere near what it is now. But you're telling me, like, if the Suzuki unit can't get it done, like Marty, they're gonna have a short leash because Marty's gonna go, I can throw out Demidov and Dobson and Line if you guys aren't figuring it out. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Like, I completely agree. I think that it gives each unit a shorter leash, and that sort of intercompetition is going to make both of those units better.
Yes,
I think of it like, we're recording this on Sunday. It's the middle of football season. Like, when you have an alpha wide receiver and it pulls a lot of the attention to that one guy, your wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 all of a sudden are getting lesser competition because, hey, that guy's pulling focus and I'm going to find more open space in the field. That's how I kind of see this. Now, which one of these is truly the alpha? I don't really know yet because like the Boy Genius line and Hudson and now adding Bolduc to that. Like, how lucky is Zach Bolduc that he got traded to this situation? Like, he gets to play on that power play. That rules. I'm always looking at situations where I'm like, man, this guy is in a killer spot. It was always like Newhook in the past, and then that immediately disappeared because someone was horrifically injured. But like, he's in a great spot. But I genuinely don't know, like, which one of these I think is the better unit, because I just think it's really going to depend on who's hot in the moment. It's sort of like having a 1A, 1B goaltending situation. Like, who's our starter? The guy who's going. Like that, I think that's really helpful for the Canadiens this year. They don't have to rely on one unit to get everything done.
Yeah. So, real quick, because we've got under a minute left. Like, how much does a 1A, 1B situation hurt any player? We're talking about like 1A, 1B centers, 1A, 1B goalies, 1A, 1B power play units.
I think I dislike a lot of 1A, 1B scenarios because when you have 2 1s, you have none.
Right.
I think with power play units, it's a little different because it's not it's not an individual, right? Like it's 5 guys, and both of these units have 5 guys who should be on power play units. Maybe you'd like to one day upgrade on Gallagher being in that role, but like given he does what Gallagher does and nobody else really does it all that well, that's fine. I don't really have an issue with that. But I don't think it's going to hurt anybody. I think it's going to make them all be better. The worst case scenario is that both of them are awesome all of the time and you have a hard time picking who to throw out there, and that's a perfect problem to have.
That's a great problem to have. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on this. I think it's going to be really interesting. We'll see what happens. Obviously, none of this is fully set in stone, but I like that they're experimenting this way. But in the meantime, there's a couple guys that are getting rave reviews in training camp. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the season action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, so the season hasn't even begun, and we already have a lot of Kirby Dach naysayers. But Kirby Dach himself cares not for your naysaying. He's apparently doing really well in training camp, along with Arber Xhekaj, obviously.
Yeah, I wanted to focus on those guys. I want to start with Xhekaj because I thought it was important that he spoke about his relationship with Marty. He said Marty thinks of him as one of his sons. Like he's hard on him because he knows how great he can be. Which I loved. I love that we're putting to rest this idea that Marty hates him. Like it's such a silly. It was always silly. It's even sillier now. But Eric Engels, viewing what was happening in those games, noted that Xhekaj looks faster, and not only like foot speed wise, but decision making was faster. I think that's going to be a major part of whether or not he can be a regular NHL defenseman for the rest of his career is if the speed of his computer can go a little bit quicker. And Marty talks about that all the time, right? The computer, the thing in your head that makes you make the decisions you make. Like if Xhekaj can figure that out when it looks like he spent some time this summer working on it, that's a big deal. And it might give him the edge over a guy like Jaden Struble. Does that change anything in your mind of where Arber Xhekaj sits within this team if he can start to make those decisions a little faster? Like, is that enough to say he's an 82 game NHL regular? You're muted.
Of course I am. Preseason. I think it definitely gives him an edge. Like I do think that it depends on how quickly he learns that, right? Like how quickly he picks up that instinct. Because you want it to be instinctual. Yeah. That's what you want, right? So I think definitely that's where he's going to build his edge. That's where he solidifies his role on this team. And he's in the second year of a 2-year contract, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And it's about like, and it's about he needs to sort of carve out a perfect role for himself, as does Kirby Dach, who's in the last year of his contract. It was funny, there was a scrimmage, or maybe it was just a drill, where Kirby Dach and Xhekaj ran into one another, and Xhekaj knocked over Dach. He hit him kind of low, and I think everyone kind of held their breath for a second, but Dach got up, they tapped pads, they were cool. Kirby Dach's the other one. And it's a guy we've talked about all summer. And it's a guy who I think we're all really hoping is coming into the season motivated and to prove people wrong, but also to ensure that he can continue to, be a part of this team and continue his NHL journey. I think playing him with Patrik Laine, you're going to have two very motivated, low-key angry guys playing with one another. they're all going to be motivated to make that line work because there's so much talent on that second line now, especially with Demidov there to help them and them to help Demidov, right? To help bring him along. I loved when Laine was asked, what's it like to get to play with Ivan Demidov? And he goes, I've been in the league 10 years. He gets to play with me. Like, which he said, like, tongue in cheek, as Laine often does.
Yeah.
Finnish players often have very dry senses of humor. But I love that. I love that he still thinks, no, I'm the alpha on this line. I'm Patrick Laine. Like, he's going to play with me, which is great. I love that. Let him ride shotgun with Patrick Laine. I'm very excited for that line, especially because Dach is stepping back into that role.
Yeah. And so, like, I think if it works out really well with Patrick Laine and Kirby Dach this year, I think another advantage is playing with two guys who, for all intents and purposes, they're still pretty young, but they're veterans on this team, right?
Right.
Like that experience of having these guys suffer so many setbacks after so much promise and come back, right? Like, I feel like there's like an aspect of like the David Savard aspect of it, like, but for Ivan Demidov, like those guys can really set an example for him and kind of show him about adversity, like, which I think, which is not to say he's going to have any, right? Like, people are already penciling him in for the Calder trophy this year, which we got to calm down with until Ivan Demidov. No, we don't. Okay.
I've already said I'm done tempering my expectations. I'm over it. I tried to do it with Hudson. It was useless. I'm trying to do it with Demidov. It's pointless. Let it ride. Dude's going to win 8 Calder trophies this year alone.
Yes. So either way, like, I think it's just like, I really hope that line works out. And I know we're talking about, like, one day Ivan Demidov is going to be the first liner or whatever. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, let's just enjoy this ride, because whatever happens in the future, we can't control it. All we can say is that Ivan Demidov is a Montreal Canadiens. We get to enjoy that ride.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, this might be one of the most talented lines he gets to be a part of. Just look at it. Like, he's playing with Patrick Laine and Kirby Dach. Like, it's a good line.
Yeah.
So the next line I wanted to talk about, and this, again, all of this is kind of breaking as we're doing this. The third line. So day one of camp, there was an open spot on the third line between next to Alex Newhook and Zach Bolduc. On day one of camp, it was Owen Beck. On day 2, it's Joshua Watt. So Arber Boston notes that appears to be an open competition. That's interesting to me. It's interesting that they're giving those to guys who I think will be AHLers this year. But even with that, just keeping that competition aspect in mind, hopefully you get the best out of these players. Like, hopefully at some point we see, maybe we'll see it in a preseason game. We'll probably get one. Each of them will get one preseason game on that line. And we'll see who can take it, if anybody can. Or maybe they go, you know what, we're better with Sammy Blais there, or whatever. I just think it's important to reiterate to guys like Joshua Waugh and Owen Beck that they're fighting for something, that they need to win a spot. It's not theirs to have. That's important. We talk about chairs. Marty always talks about a guy winning a chair, whether or not he should have that chair. Both of those guys should be capable of not only winning that chair, but keeping it for most of the year.
Yes, I think so. And I really do think, like, I want to see consistency for Joshua Waugh, and I want to see drive from Owen Beck. It's two different things, right? I don't think Owen Beck was inconsistent last year. I think Joshua Waugh was wildly inconsistent last year, but I want to see more drive and motivation from Owen Beck. Like, that's what I'm looking for. Any final notes on training camp?
Sidney Crosby may or may not be coming to Montreal, which is true for both Monday and, in the grander scheme, the entire season. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, like, if Pittsburgh sends him to Montreal for that game and plays him, I don't know what they're thinking. They just should leave him home. There's no benefit to that happening.
Well, unless they, like, are really radically trying to do a nuclear rebuild.
yeah, maybe they are, but, like, I just think that is a self-inflicted wound. They don't need to be doing that.
That is a decision that they do not need to be making at this point.
Yeah.
All right, you've heard it here. Like, the games are starting. We are obviously going to be with you throughout the preseason and the regular season and hopefully the playoffs. So you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe, like, share, tell your friends. You can also find us all over social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky, all at Locked On Canadiens. And you can also send us emails. We love emails. So send us emails to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We want to thank you all so much for listening. You'll find me on social media at The Active Stick. You'll find Ian at Maybe It's Ian. Thank you so much for listening. And we will talk to you all tomorrow with a real game recap.